do
I
in
don't.
boxing, but I do think when you actually come up against a proper serious boxer, and I suspect that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. may be that person, it could all come
problem
crashing
here,
down.
Piers, is that you think that your opinion matters.
No, I don't think it's good. I think he train hard, but he's not a good fighter.
Point is, I think he's coming into this fight with the right approach, with the right mindset.
Boxing experts aren't holding back. They say Jake Paul's getting slept by round 5 when he steps in with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. According to them, Chavez Jr.'s power, experience, and old-school ring IQ will be way too much for Jake. To survive, this ain't another influencer matchup, this is a real test against a former world champ. A lot of fans and insiders are calling this Jake's toughest opponent yet, and if he's not ready, they're predicting it ends early and ugly.
So I've just interviewed your opponent, Julio, very confident, says he's going to knock you out in the 9th round.
Yeah, man, you know, he's a dumbass, and so it's gonna be apparent on Saturday when he's the one that gets knocked out.
Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. didn't hold back when asked about Jake Paul's boxing skills. He made it clear that, while he respects Jake's work ethic and dedication in the gym, the results just don't impress him. According to Chavez Jr., boxing isn't just about training hard, it's about instincts, rhythm, and real fight experience, things Jake simply hasn't shown at the professional level. You can't fake that, Chavez said, and when the pressure's on, that's what separates a real fighter from a showman.
But one thing I've gotten off him during this week is that he's viewing this fight as at least a pathway to some form of redemption. He's not going to get all his fans back. He's not going to redeem himself on the eyes of the fans of his father. But if he can beat Jake Paul, beat him convincingly, maybe don't think quite so much about quitting against Daniel Jacobs or against Fafara or that terrible performance against Anderson Silva. Like, I think the point is, I think he's coming into this fight with the right approach, with the right mindset. I promise you, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not just here for a payday. He is not just here to collect a check and to get whitewashed by Jake Paul over 10 rounds. He's coming to win. He may not win. Jake could turn out to be even better than maybe people generally think. But he's coming to win, and I think it's going to be a competitive fight.
Media personality Piers Morgan has added his voice to the growing skepticism around Jake Paul's boxing career. In a blunt critique, Piers pointed out that Jake still hasn't faced a true professional boxer in their prime, and that's where Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. comes in. According to Morgan, Chavez Jr. is the real test Jake's been avoiding, and the one that could finally expose his limits. Among boxing insiders, there's a rising consensus. Julio has the experience, technique, and ring IQ to beat Jake convincingly and possibly end the hype for good.
Shit. YouTube this, YouTube that, Disney that. This shit is not a joke. I'm knocking out the best of the best, beating all of these people time in and time again. And it's about time that you old heads and all these fucking boxers who think they know about the sport put some respect on my name.
Yeah, but you're not going to get, look, you're going to make a ton of money. Listen, I think as a businessman, you are brilliant, right? I give you full credit for that. When you took on Mike Tyson as a business enterprise, there's no argument. You absolutely crushed the numbers, crushed the money, and everything else. But the idea that you can say, on the one hand, I'm a killer, I get in the ring with the best people, and you get in the ring with a guy who's 50, he's literally nearly as old as me.
I'm not talking about Mike Tyson, I'm talking about Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, champions in their sport, Golden Gloves champions, Ryan Borland, Andre August, undefeated fighters. The list goes
But what
on and
great
on.
boxer have you been in the ring with?
Former world champion on Saturday, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., son of the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, besides me, of course. Like, I don't know what you guys want to see. I tried to fight Canelo. He ducked out of it. You asked him about that. You said he's going to kill me. So what do you want? You're laughing when you say, oh, Jake is going to fight Canelo. I think you would kill him. But then you're like, oh, you're not fighting this guy. You're the problem here with this whole situation and criticism of my career. I'm trying to fight the best people, and that's why Chavez is here on Saturday. I want Canelo. I want Anthony Joshua. I want all these people. It's been 5 years in this sport.
But the problem is, the only proper boxer you fought was Tommy Fury, and he beat you. And he's not even the best. He's not even the best fighter in his family.
Golden Gloves champion Andre August, Brian Borland as well. Anderson Silva was an undefeated boxer. I mean, you can sit there and make up shit, but you actually don't know your facts. I've fought multiple boxers with professional records, and including Mike Tyson himself, who I think is going to be a harder fight than Chavez.
Veteran trainer Robert Garcia didn't mince words when asked about the upcoming Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight. According to Garcia, Chavez Jr. doesn't need to do anything special to win. He just needs to show up and box. The gap in skill and experience, he says, is wide enough to decide the outcome on its own. Garcia pointed to Chavez Jr.'s ring IQ, natural ability, and years of fighting at the highest level as key advantages. Against someone like Jake, who's still relatively new to real professional boxing, that combination makes Chavez Jr. a very dangerous problem.
I love that dude. He's cool. I love that dude.
Okay, if he wins, what does it say?
Nothing. Chavez gonna win.
And what does that say if he beats Jake Paul?
Not much. Just a good win. A lot of millions of dollars, and then maybe do a rematch, which is bad. Make a lot of money.
Even legendary fighter Manny Pacquiao weighed in on the matchup, and he made his pick crystal clear. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Pacquiao, known for his sharp instincts and experience at the highest level, sees Chavez Jr. as the superior fighter, by far. For Manny, it all comes down to pedigree and real-world ring experience, something Jake Paul simply hasn't earned yet. And when a Hall of Famer like Pacquiao speaks, it carries weight. He's been in the trenches, fought the best, and knows exactly what separates hype from true talent. In his eyes, this fight isn't even close.
Yeah. But yeah. Asking about Jake Paul. Who do you got in the Jake Paul fight?
Jake Paul and Chavez. Julio. Viva Julio.
Viva Julio!
Julio.
Oh, shit.
Julio's winning.
Oh.
That's Manny's manager. He's putting it out there. I'll see you Saturday night. Viva Julio.
Insiders in the boxing world say Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. isn't taking Jake Paul lightly, not even a little. Despite what critics expected, he's not walking into this fight banking on his name or past glory. Instead, he's locked in, training hard, and treating Jake like a serious threat, not just some easy payday. It's a big mindset shift and a crucial one. In boxing, the moment you underestimate someone is the moment you get caught. Chavez Jr. knows that, and from what insiders are seeing, he's preparing for war, not a circus.
But one thing I've gotten off him during this week is that he's viewing this fight as at least a pathway to some form of redemption. He's not going to get all his fans back. He's not going to redeem himself on the eyes of the fans of his father. But if he can beat Jake Paul and beat him convincingly, maybe don't think quite so much about quitting against Daniel Jacobs or against Fanfara or that terrible performance against Anderson Silva. Like, I think the point is, I think he's coming into this fight with the right approach, with the right mindset. I promise you, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not just here for a payday. He is not just here to collect a check and to get whitewashed by Jake Paul over 10 rounds. He's coming to win. He may not win. Jake could turn out to be even better than maybe people generally think, but he's coming to win, and I think it's going to be a competitive fight.
Veteran boxer Gabe Rosado weighed in with a sharp take, highlighting that in high-stakes fights, experience is the real game changer. While Jake Paul may have youth, hype, and momentum on his side, Rosado pointed out that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has lived through it all: championship rounds, bloody wars, and the unforgiving grind of elite-level boxing. You can't simulate that kind of experience in a training camp, Rosado said, and exhibition fights don't prepare you for the storm Chavez can bring. For Rosado, this fight is a reality check, and he's betting that Chavez's ring history will be the difference maker when it gets rough.
I really don't know his habits. He has a bad track record on preparing. But look, man, if Chavez comes in at least 60%, then I think Jake really has a fight. Because one thing that Chavez has is experience. He may not have the youth, and the agility that Jake has right now, but he does have the experience. And I think that experience will give Jake a problem.
I completely agree with you. I think this is an excellent fight for Jake. Officially, he is 11-1, but he's really like 2-1 as a boxer. He's fought Tommy Fury. He fought a couple of no-name cruiserweights. I guess if you want to throw Mike Perry into that list, you can say he was 3-1. But against guys that are traditional boxers, he's a 2-1 fighter.
Julio Cesar Chavez, a legend and one of boxing's most respected icons, didn't hold back when backing his son. In a firm and almost prophetic tone, he issued a warning to Jake Paul. What's coming is unlike anything Jake has ever faced. For Chavez Sr., this fight isn't just another pay-per-view spectacle, it's personal. His confidence in Julio Jr. isn't just about bloodlines. It's about what he's seen behind closed doors. The sacrifices, the discipline, the grind. Chavez Sr. believes his son has finally locked back in, and when he steps into that ring, Jake Paul's about to find out what real boxing looks like.
He knows exactly what to do. Jake Paul just fought against Mike Tyson, who didn't even throw one punch. This is not Mike Tyson. You are gonna get your ass whooped.
No hay manera de que le ganen Jake Paul.
There is no way Jake Paul can.
Esta preparación que hizo Julio, Jake Paul no la sabe, ¿entiendes?
This camp, Jake Paul doesn't know
Va a
it.
salir a tirarle chingazos y Jake Paul va a andar corriendo como gallina.
Julio's gonna go in throwing some serious punches, and you're gonna be running like a chicken without a head.
Many observers remain skeptical about the authenticity of this upcoming matchup, given Jake Paul's history of fighting older, retired athletes and YouTubers. There's a growing suspicion that this fight might just follow the same scripted pattern more show than real competition. Critics argue that if it turns out to be another media stunt, it won't add any real value to Jake's career. However, even if Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. isn't at his absolute best, he still poses a serious challenge. Unlike Jake, Julio has faced elite opponents inside the ring and carries the battle scars to prove it. That experience alone gives him credibility, making this fight potentially much tougher for Jake than anything he's faced before Ivan if Julio is past his prime.
Let's talk about this one here. This Saturday, June 28th, we've got Jake Paul. He's going to take on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And I don't know if this is a real fight or if it's a fake one, so let's talk about this. All right, let's say this is a real fight because I don't know, I don't want to sound like a hater, but some of Jake Paul's fights look like they've been staged. So let's say this is a real fight. This is the real deal. Listen, man, Chavez Jr. has never been the greatest boxer out here. He's lacked in discipline. He's lacked in the sport. But nevertheless, he is a credible opponent. Jake Paul, on the other hand, I don't know, Some of the fights look staged. Some of the knockouts look like the guys have been paid. With that being said, the problem child is taking on Chavez Jr. this weekend. Let's take a look at both men's professional record. Yes, I said professional record. This is a box rec. This is Jake Paul's professional record. All right, cool. Let's get into it. 11 wins, 7 coming via knockout, and 1 loss. Let's take a look at Jake Paul's actual professional record. So he's fought 3 professional boxers, 1 Tommy Fury, 1 Andre August, and 1 Ryan Berlin.
Oscar De La Hoya, legend in boxing himself, has voiced strong support for the competitive value of this bout. He sees Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. as a major step up in opposition for Jake Paul, while Jake has often faced lesser opponents who didn't pose a real threat. De La Hoya believes this fight will finally push Jake to his limits. He called it Jake's most difficult challenge, yet not just because of Julio's experience, but also because of the unpredictability and resilience Chavez Jr. still brings every time he steps into the ring.
I'm really excited because the only reason I got involved with this is because he's fighting a real fighter now. Julio Cesar Chavez went 12 rounds with Canelo. He is an ex-world champion in boxing. So this is a real legit fight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm obviously questioning what Chavez Jr. will we see. Will he be in great shape? Will he not be in shape? Will he make weight? Will he do a lot of questions behind it? But ultimately, you have to tell yourself, Jake Paul, congratulations. This is the real first legitimate world champion fighter you're fighting.
Jeff Mayweather takes a more cautious view of the fight. While he acknowledges that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. once had strong credentials, he questions how much of that skill still remains today. Jeff believes the timing actually favors Jake because Jake is more talented, but because Julio is far past his prime. From Jeff's perspective, this fight feels more like a calculated move to add a former champion's name to Jake's resume, rather than a genuine test of skill. In other words, the matchup might look impressive on paper, but it could fall short when the gloves actually come off in the ring.
I'll back down and all that kind of stuff, but is this, another name that just, like I said, gives the detractors more feel for their fighter? Does this help Jake at all?
I don't think it's really going to help him that much. I mean, it will in the sense that he fought a legitimate fighter that actually was a professional fighter and a world champion. But to get him after a 5-year layoff and being inactive is almost just like fighting Mike Tyson.
I mean, it's like the same thing. It's like an older guy past his prime who hasn't fought in a long time. You know, I guess he doesn't have an MMA career behind him, so maybe that's a good thing. But it's a lot of the same thing that people have always complained about.
Yeah, but I think this is a fight that Jake can win. I mean, legitimately win.
The matchup has sparked a heated debate about what really matters in boxing, youth or experience. Jake Paul clearly has the edge in energy and physical conditioning, bringing fresh ambition and relentless pace. But Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. counters with timing, accuracy, and far sharper technique. Analysts agree that Julio's hand speed, defensive skills, and mastery of ring control are on a whole different level than anything Jake has shown so far. This clash between Jake's youthful drive and Julio's seasoned craft makes for a compelling showdown. Many believe that while Jake might push the action, it's Julio's ring IQ and experience that could ultimately decide the fight.
How good is Jake Paul's next opponent, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.? Can he pull off the upset and beat Jake? Now, Chavez Jr. in his prime was a really solid fighter. 46-0, four-time WBC middleweight champion. This is him against Sergio Martinez, a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter. You know, hurt him bad with the left hook, dropped him in the 12th round, nearly got the finish, but Martinez did end up winning this fight. And then after losing the title in 2017, this is him versus Canelo in 2017. You know, solid pressure fighter, good body shots, decent hand speed, but these are pretty much his only highlights in the fight, you know, because he pretty much lost every round 12-0, but still, he did go the distance with Canelo. But then you get to his most recent fight versus Uriah Hall at cruiserweight, you know, he still got some decent body shots, but he looks considerably slower fighting in a heavier weight class. And his footwork is a bit plotty, he's not as fast. You know, look, Chavez Jr., he's not a bad fighter, he's never been a bad fighter, but what he is very undisciplined and considerably slower and more flat-footed at 39 years old fighting at cruiserweight. You know, the technicality, the experience, it will give him a 25 to 30% chance. But the youth, the size, the speed of Jake, that'll give him more of the edge.
There's no denying the commercial appeal of this fight. Jake Paul is a marketing powerhouse with a massive online following, while Chavez Jr. carries a legendary name that still commands respect in boxing circles. Together, they create pure media gold. This matchup draws in traditional boxing fans eager to see Chavez's comeback, as well as younger audiences who follow Jake's online empire. No matter who wins, both fighters stand to gain big financially and reputation. The mix of celebrity status and real boxing history guarantees strong ticket sales and sky-high viewership.
Let's find a real boxer. This man's an ex-world champion. He's way smaller when he was competing. Yeah, come up to my weight. He's the son of a legend. I'm now Puerto Rican. He's Mexican. It's the best you could do. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, it's brilliant. You can't really do better than that if you're not trying to feed man to the wolves, but you're trying to make it appear so.
But do you reckon it's going to generate numbers?
Good question.
It depends how they market it.
It depends what Chavez comes on.
Yeah.
Because Jake won't be able to push this himself. It depends what Chavez comes on. If Chavez comes on some like, listen bro,
won't teach you boxing,
yeah, then it can sell.
That type of energy.
But if he comes on the vibe we know he's on, which is why even his dad don't really want.
Despite criticism over his recent form, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. still deserves respect for what he's accomplished. As a former WBC middleweight champion, he's faced legitimate contenders and survived intense high-pressure battles. His technical skills, endurance, and ring intelligence were once among the best in boxing. While he may no longer be at his peak, those qualities don't just vanish overnight. If Julio can tap into even a fraction of his old form, he could make life extremely difficult for Jake Paul. His deep experience in the ring gives him an edge that no amount of YouTube training can ever replicate.
So Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who wins? Now this fight should really come down to two things. The youth of Jake versus the experience and technicality of Chavez Jr. Now Jake, he'll probably be the faster guy, carries more power at cruiserweight. I don't think he's got good footwork by any means, but Chavez Jr. does look more plotty at cruiserweight, considering he is a middleweight/super middleweight moving up in weight later in his career. Now Chavez Jr., I do think he does a lot of things better than Jake. Defensively, his hand positioning is better, his lead left hook is better, his combinations and body shots are a lot more technical. But ultimately, it comes down to can he execute the way he used to? Because if you look at his last fight against Uriah Hall, he didn't throw as much volume as he used to. Like I said, looked a lot heavier on the feet. And this was a 6-round fight, so who knows how his cardio will hold up in a 10-rounder against Jake. But since Chavez Jr. is quite durable, he went 12 with Canelo, went 12 with Sergio Martinez. I do think Jake wins this one by decision, just being the more active guy on the front foot. But for Chavez Jr. having any chance to win, he's got to throw 2 to 3 times more punches than he did in his last couple of fights.
No matter the controversy or mixed opinions, this fight is shaping up to be a huge event. Jake Paul's polarizing personality guarantees it will grab attention like nothing else. The fact that he's finally facing a seasoned boxer adds even more buzz and excitement. Some fans are rooting for Jake to fall. Others want to see him prove the doubters wrong. But one thing's clear, everyone is watching. That emotional pull, whether it's love or hate, is what sells tickets and drives pay-per-view numbers. So while questions about the fight's legitimacy will swirl, there's no question about how marketable it already is.
News: Jake Paul is going to be taking on former world champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a fight that I think is going to fool a lot of people. Now, what do I mean by fool a lot of people? What I mean is people are going to, on paper, look at this and be like, "Oh, Jake Paul gets schooled here, gets schooled here." Chavez Jr. is 39. He was not known as a very disciplined boxer during his prime. That's one of the reasons he had such a heavy decline. He's also a lot smaller than Jake Paul. What I will say about Jake Paul is he is a genius, or his team and management are geniuses at giving him opponents that people on paper look at and be like, "Oh, Jake Paul's not a real fighter, he won't be able to beat this guy." This is very, 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 very minimal risk for Jake Paul. The only factor that could come into play here is if Chavez Jr. decides he actually wants to show up properly for this fight, conditioned, and use his experience to win. But Jake Paul, for me and his team, have been very, very careful about who they matchmake him against ever since the Tommy Fury fight. Ever since here, we haven't seen him in there with someone his own age, his own weight, and his own sort of experience. For me, if Jake Paul wants to be a YouTube boxer still, and he wants to be considered an influencer boxer, matchmaking him against these guys that on paper, oh, this is a big challenge for Jake Paul, in reality not really, is okay. But I think if Jake Paul actually is what he says he wants to be, and he wants to make that step up, man, he's going to have to take risks.